unanimous vote. In the history of the United States, there was only one election with a unanimous vote. Okay, that's going to be this one, the election of 1789.
Why is New York just not like...
Hadn't got its votes in. They weren't tabulated. Why is North Carolina and Rhode Island still considered to be territories?
They didn't have enough people to stick with?
No, because these were part of the 13 colonies, right?
They haven't ratified the...
They had not ratified the Constitution.
Oh.
Okay, and that's the reason for that. Okay, so when you look at this, this is basically just coming up and talking about, now politics in this time period is not politics as we know it. Did George Washington go out and campaign?
No.
Okay, was he on televised debates? Were the 30 people wanting to be president? No, there was Washington, because everybody knew he was going to be the man. They also did things differently back then. Okay, when the voting occurred, whoever got the most votes became president. Whoever got the second most became president. Why is this a bad idea? Okay, but there are no parties.
They're run-ins.
Okay, exactly. Okay, so as we start to develop the political process, suddenly people start going, uh-oh. Okay, we have the president and the vice president, they don't even what? Agree. Exactly. Okay, who becomes vice president? John Adams. No, in this case, Adams, actually not really a huge fan of Washington, but he was also a part of the Federalist Party, which is going to start happening and stuff like this. Okay? Now, very quickly, let's talk about Alexander Hamilton's financial policies. All right? Now, who was Alexander Hamilton? Financial genius. Also, his title was Secretary of the Treasury. Okay, he was a friend of Washington's. He was his aide-de-camp during the American Revolution. Okay, and is going to be very instrumental in establishing the finances of the young United States. Now, if you were to encapsulate what Hamilton believed his goal should be for the young United States, what would it be? Get out of debt?
Break even.
Mr. Sullivan, what do you think?
Establish manufacturing and trade.
Okay, that would be part of it. All of these things are part of it, but what's he really trying to do?
Good credit.
What is that?
Good credit.
Good credit. That's all part of it.
He's trying to like establish a base for future finances.
Exactly. And what is he doing? He's trying to get everybody to do what?
Come together as one.
To buy into this whole idea of the United States of America. Remember, don't we have a new country?
Yeah.
Okay, what's just been passed?
Constitution.
The Constitution of the United States. Okay? So, when you look at Hamilton's financial program, okay, it's going to rest on four major ideas. Number one, the repayment of domestic debt. What is domestic debt?
Dead at home.
Debt at home. Meaning what?
War reparations and whatnot.
Not reparations. That's usually payments for something bad. You're close. How many of you own part of the United States debt? Why?
We all do.
Well, we all do symbolically, but I mean actually own a piece of it. You have a piece of paper that signifies that you have a piece of the United States. I bet you. What is it?
Treasury bonds.
Not just treasury bonds, but what?
War bond.
Anybody have a U.S. savings bond? Grandma never gave you a U.S. savings bond? Then you own part of the debt. Okay? Grandma gave the government $100. The government gave you a piece of paper. What a great trade. Okay? However, someday you hope that this paper is going to do what? Be worth more. So your $100 becomes
$110.
$200. $110 where you work, cheap. Okay? What is funding at par?
Getting enough money to break even.
Paying at
Kind of,
face
sort of.
value.
Okay, paying at face value. Does everybody understand this concept? All right. We're done. I'm just kidding. Okay, so. So. The domestic debt. People borrowed money. The government borrowed money from average people, right? They had to fund the war, correct? Okay, now, Hamilton is up here and he has this great idea. H. That's a light bulb. Or Pac-Man, I don't know which one. Okay? Now Hamilton, okay, in 1780 somebody gave $1,000, okay, to the United States government on the promise that we would do what? Pay them back. Okay? Now, does money depreciate?
Yes.
Does the value of money change?
Yes.
Okay, why? It's money. How can it change in value? Does your bill suddenly do like a Hogwarts thing and change like faces and values and stuff?
Inflation, deflation, like various currency exchanges.
Currency exchanges. How many of you traveled outside the United States? When you got outside the United States, what did you have to do with your dollars? Exchange them. Well, how did you know what it was worth in the other country's money? Who says it?
Generally the market says that.
What market? They're the, like little tiny men with like hats that say market.
The economy.
The bank people. Oh, let's trust them. Okay, you're right. Basically, what happens? Currency depends upon the strength of your economy, right? So does the strength of the dollar fluctuate? Yes. Based upon what?
Your economy.
The strength of the economy compared to
The other people's strength.
other people. Okay? Many years ago, I lived in Japan. When I first got to Japan, the yen rate was about 250 to 1. About 6 months after I got there, the United States decided to devaluate the dollar against the yen. It dropped to 110 to 1. Okay? Now, what does this do?
You can't buy as much.
It encourages like more trade between those two.
More trade in which way? You're right.
Makes sense in my head.
It made a VHS player made in Japan.
It's more expensive here. Why do that?
Cheaper here.
Cheaper here. Okay, because what it did over there is it made the Coke that I used to pay $1 for now be what?
$2.
$2.
$2.
Everything doubled in price for me, practically overnight. Yeah, it was horrible, actually. Okay, so it's like if you ever go like overseas or something like that, and you go to a country that is actually weak against the dollar, does it go a lot further? Okay, this is a really stupid example. I probably shouldn't say it, but has anybody ever seen the movie Euro Trip?
Yeah.
You know at the end where they're like buying like hotels for nickels and stuff?
Yeah.
That's an exaggeration of it. Okay? So when you're looking about that, okay, yes it can be. Do people actually speculate on currency?
Sure.
Yeah, they actually basically gamble, say, they buy a whole bunch of currency in hopes that it's going to do what?
Be worth more.
Go up in value. Before I left Iraq, I bought 2 million Iraqi dinar over a course of about 15 months. 2 million. Okay, why did I do that? Because Gulf War, the Iraqi dinar was 3 to 1 against the US dollar. Okay, before I left Iraq, it was 1,500 to 1. Someday, I hope Iraq becomes a superpower and it's 1 to 3. And then I'm going to have a really big party and you're all invited. Okay, is this ever going to happen? No, but it's a thought. Okay? So, currency kind of then fluctuates. So what happens is in 1791, let's say, the value of that note is actually only worth $800. Now you loaned money to the government, right? You thought you were going to get how much back? 1,000. But in reality now you're only going to get, you are sad. Okay? However, Mr. Hamilton says we will fund this at par. Meaning we're going to fund it at its original value. So instead of getting 800, you get 1,000 and your...
Happy.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, no, come on, head bobs or sideways or something like that. Does that make sense?
So like no matter the inflation going on at the time, you would still
Pay it off at its original value. Why would the government spend more money than it had to?
Make the people
To increase confidence in the government.
Bam, increase confidence in the government. This is key. This is what Hamilton's financial plan is all about. The more people are confident, the more people are going to do what?
spend money.
Invest. So this guy's happy. He didn't get screwed over on his money, so he's more likely to,
Invest a little more.
hey, here's $2,000. Does that make sense?
But then don't you have to pay them back $2,000?
Pay them back how much?
$2,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, the government operates in debt. That's what they do. There's only been a couple times in American history where we actually were not in debt. Okay? Once in Jackson's time period, or once around, I think, Grover Cleveland. Okay. Everybody good? So what does at par mean? The original value and things like that. And it makes people happy. Okay. Get that. Okay. Heather, I'm about to turn back on. Bless you. Okay, ready? Okay, the second thing, an excise tax. What is an excise tax? What you do when you get back. No, come on, what's an excise? Nobody's heard that term before? Excise. A lot of people consider it to be like a sin tax. S-I-N.
On pleasure stuff?
Guilty pleasure stuff. Alcohol, tobacco, gasoline. That'll be examples today. Okay? Stuff that you don't really technically need. Okay? Back then, when they passed the excise tax, Hamilton wants to raise money. So what does he tax? Whiskey. Okay? This angers some people, not because it's on whiskey, but because that whiskey is considered to be what?
More valuable than the money.
Money. Hence the whiskey rebellion. Farmers in western Pennsylvania, okay, used whiskey as what?
Currency.
Currency. So they would take their kegs of whiskey or their jugs of whiskey and they go and say, okay, here Arjan, here's a jug. Let me have some pigs. And he'd give me some pigs and sheep. And I'd give him whiskey. And he'd be real happy. Okay? So it's considered to be a medium of exchange. So they thought that taxing the whiskey was actually taxing money. And that's a horrible thing, right?
Tax on money.
Yeah, it's called income tax. Today, that was illegal back then. Okay, it wasn't until the passage of the 16th Amendment around 1913 that income tax actually became legal in the United States. Okay, do we still have this today?
Income tax.
We have excise taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many of you have ever purchased a gallon of gas? Okay, how much tax is on a gallon of gas?
9/10.
9/10 of a cent. Okay, next time you go, look at the sticker. It'll be on the gas pump. It'll have state tax, federal tax. You pay over 30 cents a gallon in taxes. Every single gallon.
It's like
The government makes bank. Bank, bank, bank. What's a protective tariff?
tariff. It's like a tax on imported goods.
Exactly. Everybody understand protective tariffs? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes.
You're all looking at me like, eh.
So can you give like an example?
Yes, I can. This is a remote control. It is made in England. Okay, it sells for $1. Okay, in the United States. Okay, here we have an American remote control. Looks very similar, does it not? It's $1.50. Which one are you gonna buy?
The American one.
The British one, except for the idiots who want to pay more. Okay, so, right? We have an emerging remote control industry in the United States. We want to protect it. Nobody's buying a remote control, so the factories are closing, which means lots of jobs, which means the economy spirals down. It's bad. So what do?
Tax the imported
We
goods.
put a tax on the British remote control.
Yeah.
Okay, suddenly it's not $1, it's $2.
$7.
You should probably just shut up now. Just kidding. Okay. Now, I saw your brother Saturday night, by the way.
That's weird, but okay.
It was weird. He walked into a restaurant with a bunch of people. Okay, so anyway, where was I? $2. Okay, this one, America's is $1.50. This one is now $2. Which one are you gonna buy?
America.
The American one. Okay, now 'cause it's cheap. Now American business can do what?
Fluctuate.
Grow. Okay, what's the problem with protective tariffs?
The other countries won't want to send our goods over here.
Exactly. Starts war, economic warfare. Because as soon as we start throwing up protective walls, what do?
Ditto.
Okay, so it's dangerous. Okay, the assumption of state debts. Alexander Hamilton has a plan. He's like, you know what? I want to take all the debts from the states, and we'll take them, the federal government will pay them off. Why? Because we love you states. What's he trying to do?
Move them over.
He's trying to get everybody to do what? Buy into the federal government. Good plan? In theory, right? I mean, if somebody came to me and said, Lewis, I'll pay off all your debts, I'd hug them. I would. Okay? So you're looking at this. However, what was the problem? Were all the stats in debt equally? No, they weren't. What debts were not?
The southern
The
states.
southern states. Okay? Now, the southern states are like, wait a minute, we've already paid off a lot of our debts. So this is what? It is not fair. It's not fair. So we started a war then between the southern states who were over this idea. Hamilton's at a loss. It's at a standstill in the House of Representatives. Enter political system. Thomas Jefferson, who's one of the master politicians in American history, has a dinner date. He invites Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of the Treasury. Okay? Jefferson is Secretary of State. He has the Speaker of the House of Representatives, James Madison, come over from Virginia. Right? And they sit down and they go, hey, what can we do about this? Hamilton says, well, I want my assumption bill to pass. Madison's like, well, I don't. What are you going to give me for it? What they did was negotiate a deal moving the capital down to the south, okay, between Maryland and Virginia, in a swampy little area that became known as Washington, D.C. This is known as the Compromise of 1790. Okay, make sure you know that because it's not in your book. Is it?
Yeah, I remember.
Is it labeled as the Compromise of 1790? The bus. Okay, also known as Bank of the United States. Is Hamilton pro-British or pro-French? Which one is it? Pro-British. So he looks over across there and he looks in London and he says, hey, they have that wonderful thing. It's called the Bank of England. We should have one of those too. Okay. Now, is this a good idea? Should we have like a national bank to like stabilize currency, like and do banking things for us? Sure. Right? That's not a horrible thing. Okay. However, it's going to be opposed. Who's going to oppose it? Jefferson. Why does Jefferson oppose it? Because he's Jefferson. What else?
It was proposed by Hamilton.
And it was proposed by Hamilton and they don't like each other. Why? Because they're starting to see the fence being drawn in politics. Thomas Jefferson pulls in his back pocket, opens up his handy dandy personal copy of the Constitution. Okay? And he goes, excuse me, Alex. Where in here does it say that you can create a bus? Hamilton takes it and he pushes it. And he goes, it doesn't. But nowhere in here does it say, I can't.
Can't.
Ha-ha! And furthermore, he goes, look at this. Article 1, Section 8. The end, this clause. It says Congress may make all laws necessary and proper to carry out their duties. What's this called? The necessary and proper clause, also known as the elastic clause. Yes, you do need to know that. Okay. Now becomes a battle known as constructionism. Okay? Or a loose or strict interpretation of the Constitution. Jefferson and the Democratic Republicans are like, you know what? If it doesn't say it in here, you can't do it. Hamilton and Adams and the rest of the Federalists are like, wait a minute. Even if it says it doesn't say it in here, we can still do it because of the elastic clause. Okay, this is called constructionalist. Either a strict or a loose constructionalist, or strict or loose interpretation of the Constitution. You can use those interchangeably. Okay? This is going to become the foundation also. Actually, the last thing in here, the overall objective. Okay? Basically, Hamilton is trying to court the rich, get them tied into the country. Now, do all of these issues have two lines? Two sides? Okay? What is his financial plan also creating? John? Yes? What's that? Resentment, which is going to lead to political parties. We start to see now the evolution of the two-party political system in the United States. As sides are being drawn, we see Democratic Republicans start to emerge, okay, and Federalists start to emerge. Okay? All right, any questions about the agenda? Hopefully make it a little clearer. Okay, obviously we know Alexander Hamilton best for what? You guys hold him, you caress him, some of you have kissed him, some of you sit on him. All right, admit it right now. How many of you did not know until right this second that Alexander Hamilton was on a $10 bill? Come on, look at you. I just not know. When does Hamilton become president? After Jefferson or before?
He dies. Never. Exactly.